Welcome back. The Prophet Muhammad is reported to have given a sermon on the eve of Ramadan in which he offered guidance about how to approach the blessed month. What advice did the Prophet offer about Ramadan? As we welcome Ramadan at this time of year, how can we make sure we are benefiting from the mercy and blessing of this month? With me to answer those questions, Dr. Shabir Ally, President of the Islamic Information Center. Dr. Shabir Ally, welcome to Let the Quran Speak.
Pleasure to be on.
Now, the Prophet Muhammad gave this sermon, according to reports. There is some question about the authenticity, but the content itself is relevant. So perhaps you can speak to the fact that there's some question about the authenticity.
Yeah, the hadith is widely reported in the books of Al-Bayhaqi and Ibn Khuzaymah, ancient compilers of hadith, sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And it is contained in the book Fadail A'mal, which is widely held in, widely read in Tablighi circles in mosques throughout the world. And the compiler here of Fadail A'mal, the virtues of deeds, Sheikh al-Hadith Maulana Muhammad Zakaria Kandlawi, gives a lot of details about the narrations and the questions about the authenticity. And then he says, well, the contents of this narrative are found in other reliable narratives anyhow. So it looks like what may have happened is that whoever compiled this as a sermon might have drawn from a wide variety of reports, put them all together as a comprehensive listing of the virtues of the month of Ramadan. Somebody else may have used that as a sermon on the eve of Ramadan, and somehow that got credited to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as if he himself said it. Though he said the parts, it's unlikely that he gave the entire sermon in its present form. Okay. So then what are the parts that the Prophet might have said over time?
Yes, and as you mentioned, the parts are found in different parts of the Prophet Muhammad's hadiths.
That's right, exactly. And so in short then, what is this sermon about? The sermon basically says that on the eve of Ramadan, on the eve of the, just before the start of Ramadan, yes. The Prophet, peace be upon him, addressed his followers and said that there now arises over you a great month, one full of blessings, in which there is a night that is greater than 1,000 months, so that whoever is present in this month should observe all of these things, fasting and praying on that night. And you should, if you have servants, you should lessen the burden of your servants. If people are fasting, you should, if you can, provide something for them to eat at the time when they break their fast, because you will get a reward as well. Though they will get the reward for their fast, but you will also get a reward for the fact that you provided for them.
Mm-hmm. He also says to seek the forgiveness of God in this month.
That's right, and recite the kalima, or the creed of Islam, which says there's no God but God, Muhammad is the messenger of God. You should perform voluntary deeds, and if you do, you will get the reward as though you had performed an obligatory deed in another month. If you do an obligatory deed, you'll get the reward of 70 times over. So all of this shows that the month itself is a blessed time of year, and that Muslims should capitalize on the occasion by doing good deeds.
I thought it was interesting that he said that Muslims should cultivate good habits during this month, because sometimes we talk about fasting and praying, but we don't necessarily talk about the manners aspect of it.
That's right. Whatever we do in this month, hopefully the good things will have a lasting effect in the months following. So it is good to fix this month in our memories together with doing good things, not only the prayers and fasting, but also random acts of kindness. As you mentioned, cultivating good habits. If we had bad habits, now is the time to break them. People may have had routines which are not necessary, and sometimes some routines which are costly. Like, for example, if you get an expensive type of coffee every morning and you feel it as necessary that you have to do that, well, during this month, actually, you may break that routine, and then by the end of the month, you may be wondering, well, did I really need that to begin with? Could I, for example, have donated $2 instead of having the expensive coffee? Can I have a regular coffee and give $2 to some poor person for whom this will be an actual meal? And maybe the main meal for the day in some parts of the world where people are starving. So these are ways in which we can capitalize on the great blessings of this month.
Another interesting thing is that the Prophet mentions that the gates of paradise are open in this month and the gates of hell are closed.
Yes, and what that means basically is that it's not necessarily a physical opening and closing, but the fact that when people during this month will take advantage of the opportunity to do good deeds, naturally they're heading towards paradise. So in a way, symbolically, it's as if the gates of paradise are open and welcoming people, whereas on the other hand, the people, by avoiding sins during this month, are staying away from the path leading to the hellfire, and for that reason the gates to the hellfire may as well be closed, because nobody's going there during this month. That's the basic idea. In a similar way, it is mentioned that the shayateen, the devils, are chained. And how I understand that to happen is not physically that God has captured the devils and tied them up in chains, but that the believers themselves, by their restraining themselves from committing evil, they themselves are chaining up the devils in a way. Is that the devils become powerless because they try their best to instigate believers to do evil things. But when the believers during this month are abstaining from evil, then the devils are powerless against the believers who are fortified with the fasting during this month.
Mm-hmm. We know about this sermon of the Prophet, but do we know about how the Prophet and his followers prepared for the month of Ramadan and how they practiced in the early days?
I don't recall anything specifically mentioned about this. That we know that the Prophet, peace be upon him, is reported that when the last 10 days would arrive, he would be especially devoted to worship. He would tie his loincloth tightly, it is said, which is a way of saying that he is now prepared to do some very hard work, and he would go devote himself to worship. He would stay up the nights and wake up his family as well, especially on the odd nights, one of the possible nights when the night of power or the night of decree would occur. It is known more generally, however, that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was extremely generous, and he was even more generous during the month of Ramadan. And it is said that this is the time when the angel Gabriel used to come to him to review the Quran with him. The Quran was revealed to the Prophet, peace be upon him, a piece at a time over a period of 23 years. So there was the constant need for him to gather in his mind everything that's been revealed so far. And because they were given in pieces, naturally there had to be a sequence to the recitation. And by the angel Gabriel coming to him repeatedly during the months of Ramadan, that was a way of teaching the Prophet, peace be upon him, and making sure that he got the entire Quran memorized in the proper sequence.
We'll leave it at that. Thank you for that, Dr. Shabir Ally.
You're welcome.
And Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Mubarak to you too, and to all of our viewers.
We'll take a break. When we return, we will answer questions we receive from you, our viewers.